Greetings from the black holes of Dakota Territory, United States of Academic Authors. Among other venerable organizations, I belong to the... that isn't a properly constructed sentence, is it? I belong to the Text and Academic Authors Association, one of several venerable organizations that writers can join, such as the Authors Guild, the National Writers Union. I don't believe I belong to the National Writers Union anymore. But in my opinion, they took a little bit too combative an attitude towards publishers. But the academic author has a publication that comes out just a few pages long on the finest quality paper you can imagine. Just a little bit of the very best. And what they have here, this particular episode is 10 Habits of Highly Productive Writers. Now, I don't know whether I'm that good of a writer, but no one can deny that I'm highly productive. If you look at my Amazon.com page, you can see that. Highly productive of what? Don't tell me. I don't want to know. But here's one of them. They reject the notion of writer's block the way others shun gluten. Well, I don't know if I shun gluten. I don't think I have a real big problem with that. I'd do a lot better off if I shunned sugar, though. I developed a habit of that. But anyway, here we got productive writers don't reach for excuses. When the going gets hard, they treat writing like the job it is. In other words, damn the difficulties. Full speed ahead. They know what they're good at, which has, of course, its counter-axiom or counterpart. They know what they're bad at. Maybe I'm good at making videos and bad at writing books, or vice versa, or probably, as many of you might say, more likely bad at both. They know that a lot of important stuff happens when they're not working. You know, the story of Einstein and his bubble baths, a classic example. Well, I've got a couple more to add to these 10. They're all like that. They're all very similar. And it says, please, continued on page 8, but all you got to do is flip it. They work on more than one thing at once. In other words, I do videos and books at the same time, etc., and books and other books at the same time. A little slower, though, now that I'm getting to be an old fuddy-duddy. They read a lot and widely. Well, yes, that's definitely for sure. I read everything from the book of Proverbs to Finnegan's Wake. I couldn't read Finnegan's Wake. I just couldn't do it. Could you? But here's Jibilisco's edition, number 11, the 11th rule of the 10. They go to the hospital sick as a dog, and the nurse cusses them out, tells them they're a wuss, tells them they're full of baloney, tells them if they'd quit trying to kill themselves, they wouldn't have to come here all the time. And all you do is cry because you're stoned under the influence of Dilaudid to kill the pain. And then you send her flowers. Which I did that. I did that. I just thought she was having a bad day. And, you know, everybody does that. They take their stuff out on other people. Nurses maybe shouldn't, but this one did, and I sent her flowers. And after that, she's real nice to me now. I went there again last night and got stuck under the influence of some other painkiller. What do they call it? Fentanyl. Only 100 times more potent than morphine. So that ought to have done the job. But how can you fry a brain that's already as black as coal, piece of lump of carbon anyways? But Jibilisco's rule, number 11 for writers. They can go to a hospital, have a nurse cuss them out, send her flowers, and the next time you go there, she gives you a bag of Lay's potato chips and orders you to eat more salt. Would you believe I've been ordered to eat more calories, more salt, more fat? My doctors have actually ordered me to do this. Writers are the only types of people who can do that. I don't know if it's a habit, but it certainly is a characteristic of a lot of writers. Stuff like that. Weirdness like that. Another habit that writers should acquire, number 12 of the 10 from Jibalisco, is to get into the idea that the old written word is not evolving out of existence, but other things are sprouting from it. Sort of like the way potatoes sprout those little buds. What do they call those little buds on potatoes anyway? My mother used to have a term for them. And then they grow, and then they... now visual media, such as videos like this, are proving to be one of the prime methods of instruction. And I've done in other of my videos what's going to happen someday, in my opinion. We'll have 3D videos, or I will walk all around you and draw lines and signs through your head. Oh, I'll bet you can hardly wait. But those are things that writers need to keep in mind. They're not normal people in the sense of average, boring, mundane. Generally speaking, not. Another characteristic that writers have that sprouts directly from number 1, they know that when the going gets hard, they have to keep going. Some of my best work was done under the influence of a case of influenza that I had in South Beach, Miami in 1992. Well, first of all, South Beach, Miami is a hardship for a seriously creative academic author anyway. I mean, just in and of itself, it's a hardship. 103-degree fever that won't go away except for brief windows imposed by doses of aspirin. It's another thing that makes it rather difficult to write highly mathematical text and not have it turn out to be full of errors. And yet, when that book was published, to the best of my knowledge, the 3 chapters that have all that math in it, not a single typo or error in it. Perfection under the burden and weight of adversity. That is a characteristic that if you can develop. You don't have to be born with that. Writers aren't born. Writers are made, and writers are made by their own grit. You gotta love it. And that's another one of these characteristics in this paper here somewhere. You gotta love your work. Gotta really like it. If you hate something, you're gonna be, you can't possibly be that good at it. Do you think Sandy Koufax would have been any good if he hated baseballs and baseball pitching? I don't think so. I saw him pitch, though, in the 1965 World Series, and he didn't seem to like baseball very much that day. He got clobbered by the old Minnesota Twins. That's another story with another video about Met Stadium. You should watch that. It is, especially if you live in Minneapolis, where there are a lot of good writers, by the way. That's another one. They all live in Minneapolis. Pity me. Stan Jibalisco signing off. Until next time. So long.